Hello and welcome to Inside Food City Center, where Tennessee men's basketball just got its regular season started with an 80-64 win over Gardner-Webb. I'm Ryan Sylvia. This is Noah Taylor, and we are with VolReport.com on the Rivals Network. Noah, the last 5-ish minutes of the game got pretty ugly for Tennessee. Concern level at kind of things getting ugly there?
You know, I thought going into the post-game press conference that we were going to get kind of vintage Rick Barnes about maybe what went wrong there, but you know, he came across as pretty overall pleased with the way Tennessee played out, and he did mention several times, you know, that 5-minute stretch was a letdown for them, and talked about some of the defensive breakdowns there, but you know, said a lot in there that he really liked playing this opponent in game one and playing a team that came in here with the mentality that they were going to try and win the game, and certainly, you know, Tennessee was up 27 points, I believe, was the highest mark for them in that second half. You feel like they're running away with it, a little bit of a slow start, but kind of what you expected for much of that second half. But I think after hearing Rick Barnes, you know, I don't think there is much concern right now with the way that they played outside of that 5-minute stretch. But yeah, something certainly that you're probably not going to be able to afford to do against Louisville on the road on Saturday. Of course, a team that's with a first-year head coach and I think won 8 games last year. So, but different challenges on the road for sure, and something Tennessee probably does not want to repeat.
Now, I'm not sure. I can't remember off the top of my head which school Louisville played today, but they did get a pretty big win.
Morehead State, I think.
And that's not, you know, the greatest team in the world, but the Louisville of old might lose that
for
game.
Sure. Yeah.
And now you have a team in Louisville that's winning that game. So things off to at least a better start over there, and Tennessee will, I don't know if have its hands full, but they'll have a decent challenge. And I think maybe that's part of the reason that Rick Barnes liked tonight is he got to see his team challenged. He got to see how they responded when things didn't go their way. And there's a 8-0, 10-0 run against you. How do you respond? And even if it wasn't the most positive response in the world, well, then at least you got to see some things on tape that you'll be able to harp on and get corrected for when it really does matter, and it really could cost you a game. Now, against Indiana in the exhibition, Chaz Lanier took, I think, 16 shots, made 3 of them. We hear all offseason about how efficient he is. Well, he looked like it today in the game that actually counted. He's going to finish with a team-high 18.7 for 12 shooting, 4 for 6 on three-pointers. Doesn't really impact the stat sheet much outside of that, but you didn't need him to.
Yeah.
How good was he in kind of how positive of a sign is it that he's able to shoot efficiently today, still put up a bunch of points, and kind of turn that page after a rough exhibition?
Yeah, I thought he was the headliner tonight because for all the reasons you mentioned, a guy that I don't think anybody's expecting to play, certainly to play to the level of Dalton Connect, but a guy that you went and were intentional to get in the transfer portal to come in and kind of keep this offense rolling with what they did last year. And like you mentioned, Indiana game, it didn't really see that. Struggled in that game. He talked about this week in practice when we talked to him post-game back there about, you know, the team kind of lifting him up. He said his confidence never wavered, said his team kind of helped with that, kept shooting, and it certainly paid off tonight. I mean, he was a big part of this game. And overall, I thought a pretty decent offensive game for a lot of guys on this team. But certainly he kind of is the guy a lot of people are going to talk about, and rightfully so. You saw that potential that made him, you know, one of the more highly sought-after players in the transfer portal last year. And I think this is something obviously to build off of in a game, like Rick Barnes said. You know, you kind of knew it was going to be tough, wanted it to be a little bit tough, and he played a big part in Tennessee getting out of here pretty comfortably at the end.
Now, Jordan Gainey, he's going to be the second headliner then. 16 points for him. He shoots the ball really efficiently as well. 7 for 9, 2 for 4 on three-pointers. So all 5 shots inside the arc go through. How important is it, do you think, for Tennessee to have a guy like that off the bench? So you obviously have the Chaz Lanier that's in the starting lineup, and you have Zakai Ziegler in that starting lineup, but it's off the bench now, and maybe when things don't go your way at first, he can come in and provide that spark, which is similar to what he did last year.
Yeah.
But to me, he looked a lot more comfortable this year.
I agree. I totally agree. And like you said, that's kind of the role he played a little bit last year, but now it's even more important with, you know, a lot younger team with some new pieces on the team, and he got some good experience last year. I think he played 28 minutes tonight too, off of the bench, and was big in helping Tennessee kind of get their footing after that slow start tonight. Had some big plays. And I thought on the defensive end played pretty well. I think he came with 3 steals in the game. So, yeah, I mean, a guy that's going to be a huge piece. I think we expected him to be a big piece this year off of the bench, and really showed that tonight. And I think if similar performances like this, I think you'll take the lineup you have, the starting lineup you have, and be happy with throwing Gainey out there to kind of give you an early spark.
Yeah, we'll see what his role ends up looking like by the end of the year. He of course started in that Indiana game ahead of Chaz Lanier, but I like him off the bench. I think it fits the way he plays, a guy that can come in and without kind of having to get much into the groove of things, quickly knock down a couple shots. But Rick Barnes also talked about kind of the way he talked about it seemed like he liked that role too.
Yeah.
So we'll see what that ends up looking like, but he had a really, really nice game for Tennessee. He had a really nice out-of-conference set last year for Tennessee too. The question is, can you build that into a really effective SEC slate as well, which we'll have to wait and see. If you had to pick a negative from tonight, though, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think the 5-minute stretch obviously is a big one. Again, something that they're not going to be able to do. I mean, you saw against Indiana in the exhibition a stretch that kind of Tennessee kind of felt like they were. I mean, it was close throughout, but it kind of felt like Tennessee was going to get out of there with the win. Again, a game that was meaningless when all said and done. But and again, more of that was just Rick Barnes changing the lineup purposefully and seeing how those guys handled it tonight, though. In a game that counted, I think it is a little bit concerning to go from 27 points to down to finishing with getting out of here, but with a 15-point win. But Rick Barnes said it back there. That's 5 possessions. That's really not that much. And if there had been a little bit more time left, maybe that's a lot closer game down the stretch. But I think overall a solid performance from them, but something they can't repeat. I'd say that's probably the biggest one. Felix, he talked about him battling through injury. Kind of gave some insight there. I know he had a really good exhibition as well. Played good on the defensive end tonight. I think he had 9 rebounds. That might be the game high. I'm not sure. Yeah. But again, he finished with 2 points. But Rick Barnes goes back there and tells us about the hip pointer and what he's battling through, and a guy that dealing with some things. Down in the post. JP Estrella's a guy that's limited, was able to kind of fight through it and get some minutes out there tonight too. But overall, I mean, that 5-minute stretch is the one that sticks out the most. And so maybe some defensive breakdowns as well, I'd say would be the 2 negative things that stand out the most.
Yeah, Felix, you mentioned that hip pointer that he's kind of trying to play through and trying to get his season started. So he's playing through it, but not the best night for him. To me, the biggest concern is foul trouble. He has 4 fouls on the game.
Sure, yeah.
That's not something that Tennessee is going to be able to really live with, I feel like. You have Igor, who's really playing the 4, though. So it'll be JP, who comes in, who's injured himself. You can get a guy like Cade Phillips in, who had a really nice game today as well. I thought Cade Phillips did, kind of once he got settled in, especially, too, maybe early, forced some things, and then kind of got comfortable and looked a lot better. But you really need Felix to be a guy that can stay on the floor, and 4 fouls isn't necessarily going to get that job done. 25 minutes is a decent chunk of minutes for him, but you'd like to see him stay out of foul trouble, because especially if this game's close, then all of a sudden things start to get a little bit tighter, and then maybe you get hit with that 5th foul and you're off the floor way before you want to. But rebounding in general, also not a good stat for Tennessee. It's going to go in the favor of Gardner-Webb, which is kind of surprising. 32 rebounds for Gardner-Webb and 29 for Tennessee. So Tennessee loses that battle by 3, and part of that is offensive boards. 10 offensive boards for the running Bulldogs. Tennessee, and that ends up being 12 points for Gardner-Webb. Tennessee only gets 7 second chance points. That's going to be something they're going to have to clean up. Obviously, against Louisville, that'll be a big key for them to be able to escape that game, is to be able to stop defensive possessions. It's one thing to get that first shot to miss, but then, of course, you got to grab the rebound. Then on the offensive end, you like to see a couple more second chance points, and part of that does go back to the play of those bigs. And Felix did a pretty good job rebounding offensively. He comes up with 4, but maybe you'd like to see Igor grab a couple more. He only gets 1. You get 1 from Jemai Mashak, and you don't get any from JP Estrella or Cade Phillips, and both of those guys played over 10 minutes, with Cade Phillips playing 20 minutes. So that's an area that'll definitely need to be cleaned up as well. But at the end of the day, I think you have to be happy about this one. There's areas that need to be improved, but that sometimes can be more helpful than just kind of running through a game like this and looking flawless, because then it kind of gets tough to start to ID things. And Rick talked about that too, how they're intentional with these games. They wanted a scheduled team that, of course, they thought they would win, but at the same time, they wanted to be tested early. They wanted to know what they need to improve on, and that's also part of the reason that they have Louisville in just their 2nd game of the season. As we count down to that game, we'll have you covered for everything Tennessee basketball, and of course game coverage as well. And then football season, Mississippi State this weekend. We'll have more coverage throughout the week, and then on game day, then the Lady Vols get their season started. The Kim Caldwell era officially underway tomorrow. And then also on Thursday, they have a quick turnaround before their second game, so we'll have coverage for everything you need Tennessee Athletics over at VolReport.com. Links to everything news in the description. Thank you for watching.